my name is Adri and welcome to the Lazy Arts channel. If you're new here, which is probably the case, here I share my sewing journey and sometimes sewing fails, while I try to make my own sustainable and long-lasting wardrobe. This project is a very exciting one for me because this is the first ever pattern that I made. It's really simple, it's nothing serious, but I still had to go through all the steps, like drawing the pattern, making instructions and all that. And yes, the Sydney skirt pattern was born, which is a universal skirt pattern. My main reason for making it was that every time I needed a skirt part to a dress, I self-drafted it and improvised it right on the fabric, and I never had a pattern to reach for. So this is the main reason that I made this pattern. And because I like bigger flowy skirts, like half circle skirt that this pattern makes up. And making a real half circle skirt takes a lot of fabric, especially if you want to make midi or maxi version. So I prefer this kind of method when we have skirt panels and we sew them together, and it makes up a bigger flowier skirt. So as you could see in this video, I made the zipper closure version because I already made a dress with a button-up front, so that can be a help for making a button-up version, and I have instructions for that in the instruction PDF. But inserting a zipper can be quite challenging, especially as beginners. I could only do it the second time in this skirt too, so I thought making this version will be most helpful to you guys and for me too. And I really wanted a skirt that looked like this. So first I will demonstrate a bit how to use the pattern and the really cool feature to choose your size that you want to print out, and then we will get on with the sewing tutorial. After you unpack the zip, you will have 5 files, 3 skirt patterns with the 3 different lengths, a pocket pattern, and the instructions. On the skirt pattern you will find a square to check the scale of your printing, a finished measurement chart where I really advise you to choose according to your measurements and not your usual clothing habits, so your size that you usually choose in the shops. And there's also a chart showing the different line types paired with the size. So choose your size and then find the line that you have to trace. And there are also the marks and titles of the pages to help you in assembly. And the really cool feature is if you open the PDF in Adobe Acrobat and go into the Layers tab, you can choose the size that you want to print out, and then you will only have that one line on your paper, which makes it so much easier to cut it out, as on the top and bottom of the skirt panel the lines really run over each other. Then in the instructions file you will find a chart telling you how to cut your pieces depending on the style that you want to achieve. It also explains how to print your pattern, and it has an assembly layout with all the pages titled, like how they should look when you tape them together. And after that we have instructions for the button-up and the elastic waist version. Because I have the zipper version in the tutorial already, I didn't make a written instruction for that, but eventually I plan on making a tutorial for all the versions. Okay, so for this project I used 1.5 meter or yard of pastel green rayon fabric and a 25 centimeter zipper, and also some matching thread, although at the end I used another zipper and another thread, but the zipper length is enough at 25 centimeters or 10 inches. Also the usual expense summary. I spent around 2,800 forints or $7.5 US on this project, and I've spent 7 hours totally doing this skirt. So you will only need 2 pattern pieces for this project. My Sydney skirt pattern piece, which is 1 skirt panel, and the pocket pattern piece that you can find separately. I already have my fabric folded lengthwise, and I have my water erasable pen and a fabric scissor and some weights to weigh down the pattern to the fabric. And now I will cut out my pieces. I have whole videos about how to cut and tape together paper patterns and how to cut them out after that from the fabric, so I will link those below. Now as I do the back zipper version with the pockets and the slit, I will cut 1 panel on the fold, which will be the front of the skirt, and 6 panels mirrored in pairs, which will be the side panels and the back panel of the skirt. By tracing the patterns, I add 1 cm seam allowance to all the straight sides of the skirt panels. You can play with this quite a bit if you are like between sizes on the size chart. You can either make bigger or smaller seam allowance to accommodate for your size difference. And I also cut out 4 pocket pieces, again mirrored in pairs. If you want a slit, don't forget to transfer the notch to the front and side panel pieces. I transferred it to several sides because I didn't know how I will want to make it, and later I determined exactly which one I want to use for it. As you can see, I'm cutting the skirt patterns a bit on the bias, and this will be a problem later on, especially because this fabric is a bit stretchy, and on the bias it stretches quite a bit. So if you're not working with totally unstretching like cotton fabric, then you have to be aware of this, but I will show you how I solve this problem later on. But I would still recommend to try to cut your pieces, or not cut, but use them later in a way that the bias cut sides are sewn together and the straight cut sides are sewn together also, so they can stretch more equally and it won't result in a slightly wavy seam that I have now on the skirt. By the way, I recommend more lightweight fabrics for this skirt if you want to achieve this flowy look that I have. Okay, so now I have all my pieces cut out, so we can start with the pockets. First, overlock or zigzag stitch the curved edges of the 4 pocket pieces. Then pin them to the skirt side panels with right sides facing, and then sew them with the seam allowance that you made at the beginning, which is 1 cm for me. After that, overlock or zigzag stitch the sides where you attach the pockets. Here I also determined which panel I want to use for the slit, and I've snipped the slit notch with a scissor. Next, press the pockets away from the skirt panels and make an understitching at the ones that you want to use as the front of the pocket. Next, lay the side pieces right sides facing and matching up the pocket pieces, pin them and sew them with the seam allowance that you added at the beginning. Don't forget to sew along the curved edges of the pocket. Then, after sewing both of them, we will close up some of the pocket opening, so it won't be so big, but it can still fit your hand in it. So measure down about 8 cm from the top and about 3 cm from the bottom. This will leave about 15 cm for your hand to enter. You can leave the bottom 3 cm out entirely if you want, and then just sew with a straight stitch in the line of the stitching you made when you attached the pocket pieces. Then it's time to sew all the skirt panels together, except the back seam and the one where you want the slit. So where I won't have the slit, I attach the front panel piece and one of the back panel pieces to the side panel pieces with right sides facing. And to the other one, where I had the slit notch, I only added the back panel piece. I sewed these without pinning because I'm experimenting with this. If it takes less time, and if I can do it without a mess, I would say it turned out pretty good. Then overlock or zigzag stitch the seams and all the fraying edges left out, so the back edges and the edges where the slit will go. I made the notch of the slit a little bit bigger here, so I would find it after the overlocking too. After sewing all the skirt panels together, bring it to your ironing board and give it a good press. As you can already see, this is how cutting on the bias affected my skirt. So some of the edges were way longer than others. And I solved this problem by grabbing my pattern piece and laying it down on each panel and redrawing and recutting the bottom edge of the panels. It turned out okay, but I would guess that if you sew the same stretching edges, so as I said, the bias cut edges together and the straight edges together, I would expect that this part can turn out better, and also the seams can be more flat. The right sides together, match up the front and side skirt piece where you want the slit and sew it until the slit notch. I like to go a bit back and forth at the end to strengthen the seam a bit here because it will be quite exposed to movement. Unfortunately, I didn't have the recording for pressing the slit edges because I had my phone in reverse, so I was recording but I thought it was paused. Yeah, nice. But you basically just lay it out like this, press open the seam allowance on the already sewn part, and then just go on pressing the same seam allowance to the wrong side of the skirt and pinning it throughout the slit. Then I stitched it with a bit less than my usual 1 cm setting on the machine because I didn't want such a big line next to the the slit, so it was around 6 or 7 millimeters. You have to start from one end, going all the way through to the other one, raising your sewing foot at the top of the slit, and then turning your material and pushing it back, and then going a bit back and forth again to strengthen the stitch, and then raising, pivoting, and going on sewing again until the other edge of the skirt. After this, fold the bucket pieces toward the front and do a basting stitch to keep them in place while working on the waist. The basting stitch is a normal straight stitch, but with the longest possible stitch length that you have on your machine. And you don't have to backstitch either, because it's only a temporary stitching. For the facing of the waist, measure the length of your waist and cut a piece of fabric that is about 8 cm wide and the length that you measured. And I recommend using some interfacing tools to strengthen this facing part. Then overlock or zigzag stitch 3 sides of the facing and pin the remaining long side of the facing to the waist, right sides together, matching up the center of the waist with the center of the facing. Then sew with your determined seam allowance. I always have a problem like this in everything I make, where some of the fabric gets caught in the straight stitching. So here I will undo the stitching, rip it with a seam ripper, and then I sew it again, paying attention not to make the same mistake again. And finish it with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. Then press the facing away from the skirt, making sure that the seam allowance is turned toward the facing. And then make an understitching again here too, to prevent the facing from rolling out to the visible side of the skirt. Then fold the facing to the wrong side of the skirt and give it a good press. Next is the rightfully threaded invisible zipper. On my first try it was a total disaster, but this second try proved to be pretty safe, so I would recommend trying it. First try on the skirt and determine how much you have to take in, so where to place your zipper. Here I had to place it around 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch away from the edge, but I didn't mind, because it means later on if I gain some weight or anything, I can loosen it up a bit and still wear it. So make lines at that distance that you determined, and then fold your skirt wrong side out and the back edges facing you, and then fold the edges a bit to see the right side of the skirt. And now you have to pin your zip in a way that the pulling side faces down, so you see basically the back of the zipper. So pull it down and match up the teeth of the zipper with the line that you made, and push the top of the zipper right to the seam between the facing and the skirt. Then pin it all along the 2 sides. And now first make a basting stitch before getting out the zipper foot, because this way you can make sure that your zip will not move when using the zipper foot and pushing everything around. So just leave on your regular zigzag foot and make a basting stitch, just as we did with the bucket pieces, and then fold your facing right side to the zipper, sandwiching the zipper between the skirt and the facing, as you can see. Don't worry, just trust the process, it will come out fine. And then sew along the zipper teeth with your zipper sewing foot. Then when that's ready, you can turn out the facing and the skirt, and you will have a nicely enclosed invisible zipper. After that, you only have to close up the back of the skirt at the same seam allowance that you had for the zipper. I have to say this was a bit fiddly, like right next to the zipper, but I managed it, and it's only a little bit crooked, but I'm surely will look up some methods to do this for my future project. After attaching the zip, you can do some stitches right in the crease of the skirt panel seams. This will greatly help the facing to stay in its place. Alternatively, you can make some hand stitches to the inside seam allowances of the skirt, and maybe that's a better option, because this method packs the skirt up a little bit between the seams, because it flares out right after the waist, and obviously the facing is a bit smaller than the outer skirt part. Now the only thing left is hemming the bottom of the skirt, which is not so difficult but really long. My favorite method for hemming a curved edge is sewing a straight stitch with half of the amount that you want to fold up all along the bottom edge of the skirt. I made it around at 3 stitch lengths, so not the longest but not as small as I do with the other seams, and I just sewed it all around the skirt. It makes pressing and folding the hem so much easier. Then go to your ironing board and fold and press the hem along the stitch that you just made, and then fold and press it again and pin it in place. Now just bring it to your sewing machine, choose the position of the needle to the hem that you want, and sew all around the skirt. But don't forget to switch back your stitch length to the normal amount. Now let's see how it looks. I just love how flowy this skirt is, and I really like how the half circle skirt hugs my waist but flares out right after it, and it has a really flowy bottom. Working with rayon is much harder than with cotton fabric, but it really pays at the end because it has such a nice drape. Also, I'm quite satisfied with this pocket design because it really feels comfortable, like it stays put, and if I put something in, it won't sag down so much. So I think I prefer it to the pocket pattern I used before, but of course you can make the skirt with another pattern too. And yes, I just love this skirt, and I think it's the perfect summer skirt with this flowy material, and I just can't wait to wear it. And this is only one version that you can make from the Sydney pattern, but I think it has endless possibilities, and I can't wait to try out other ones. I hope you will give it a try, and please tag me if you make something using this pattern so I can see your beautiful creations. Thank you so much for watching the video so far, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!